I'm Ivan. This talk was going to be storytelling with data. And then I looked at it and I'm like, data is, it's about storytelling. Data is sort of the medium. Just before we start, I've tried to compress this a little because I thought I had an hour, but I don't. But right after the talk, we have a panel session where you can do like an Ask Me Anything. I'll be at a desk somewhere. Else will tell you much more. So if there's something I don't cover, come see me. And also feel free to ask any questions. Any questions at all. This took about 20 years before you ask. Okay, so this is not working. That's awesome. Maybe it's the other one. It's not. Maybe I could do like a laser show. What? Sorry? Jumping up and down might help. Yay! So stories. Stories are hugely overlooked in what we do, because we all work with data. We work with results, we work with practical stuff that we've measured and we know this is true. So why the fuck are you arguing with me? Just do as I tell you because I have data, right? Any way around that. The problem is people don't speak data as well as we do. And people didn't speak data as well as we do 10,000 years ago, but they still knew they were right. And there was still stuff that needed to be transmitted from one person to another, through one generation to another, so our brain is geared for stories, because that's how we transfer information. That's how we transfer unity, that's how we transfer methods of doing things, that is how we remember stuff, stories. So if you want your boss or your co-workers who are not data savvy necessarily, or haven't seen the light that you've seen to understand what you're doing, you have to tell them a story. It's just the way of the world. It's how you pick up that cute guy in the bar, you tell them a story about yourself. It's how you tell your kids not to touch that thing because it's hot. Because remember when your little sister touched it and we spent 2 days in the, sick house, hospital. Something like that. So stories are important, and they've been always. So let's dig into it. So this is my story. I have a background in sociology. I've done 18 years of digital analytics. Sure that it's going to be checked up. And a few years ago, I changed to digital product development, which it seems a lot of us are. But that's not interesting. You'll forget that before tonight's party. This slide is going to give us something to talk about tonight, because this is what I do. This is my story. This is who I am. It's much more interesting. So I'm giving you a hook here. I'm giving you something to latch onto, to remember, to say, oh, yeah. You're that insane dude who did that weird thing with the whistle or whatever the hell that is. And are you actually a captain? And why do you look so silly in a helmet? So getting back to data. Stephen Few, who you should all know. If you don't, get to know Stephen Few. He's one of the pioneers of, who is that? Yay. See, intelligent people over here, worried about the rest of you. Stephen Few is like a pioneer of data visualization. And he actually is a proponent of telling stories with data, even though he's a graph dude. He says numbers do have an important story to tell. But they rely on you as the communicator to give them a voice and passion and drive to sell this story. You'll also notice that as we go through the slides, I've plugged in pictures of Copenhagen. This is sort of like an homage to Estonia and their affinity for Eurovision. Because before every Eurovision song, there's like a little montage from the host city. So, and also this is a tourist plug, and I'm actually getting paid by the Tourist Council. No. Anyway, these stones are very unique to Copenhagen. No. We have a tendency today to hire and educate people to gain insight from data. That's what we're doing. That's what we're hired to do. We want to gain insights from data. We want to have that eureka moment and go, this is glorious. I have figured everything out. But we forget to go that last mile. We forget to say, okay, what am I going to do with these insights? How am I going to get the rest of the organization to understand this? I've done this great A/B study, and everybody's just in my department thinks it's golden, but my CEO and CFO are like, not sure what the graph means. It's not really as green as the ones we normally use. And you just lose right there. So that's why we forget about communicating data. Also, we've talked a lot about data that's difficult, dude. Data democratization. We're going to do that later when we're all drunk. Okay. Jake talking data democratization. This is just amazing. Anyway, so data democratization is getting more and more ubiquitous. See, I can say ubiquitous without problems, but democratization, is getting more and more commonplace in our organizations, which also means that more and more people are generating insights. But these insights are local. They're understood by that person, maybe that person's closest colleagues. We need to foster a possibility to communicate these things, right? I'm just checking my list that I'm not forgetting anything. If we forget this, in reality, that insight will stay local. It will not affect change in the company. So we have to tell that story. Basically, this is an approach that you could split into the data analyst approach, which is the classical approach that we have. We assume acceptance of our conclusions because it's a conclusion. We built a hypothesis, we tested it, we have a very low p-value. It's there, it's fact, it's science. You know how hard it is to convince people of science. They do hands-on data. They would sit there and work with the data. Go, okay, fine, I'm going to filter this segment out because that's not really relevant. And then I'm going to filter out this time period because that was Christmas vacation. So they're doing hands-on work with data that other people don't normally do. They're very good at data visualization. Right? Pulling in different graphs, laying them on top of each other, maybe doing scatter plots or whatever, to sort of get an idea of what's going on. Other real people don't. It's only us freaks who can do that. And then there's a bunch of other stuff. They do induction and verification. They say, if this is true, then this is true, so henceforth I can verify it, and it's very classic Baconism. You'll look up Baconism, right? Who won't look up Baconism?
The opposite of veganism.
Well, no. So there's the more what we could call the journalist approach. We're telling a story here. So I found out there's corruption at the highest level. I can't just say that. There's corruption at the highest level, let's do something. No, I have to build a story. I have to motivate this. Why is there corruption? How do I find out about this? So we're allowing the readers to form their own conclusions. That's the best way we can do these things. Say, okay, I'm going to present you all these things, and I'm going to lead you towards it. But if you can have that, it was the guy in the kitchen who did it. If you can have that moment, instead of me telling you, it's much more fun, and you will remember it, because it's the story that's worth remembering, right? We do it by interviewing stakeholders, figuring out what's important to you, right? We'll get back to that a little later. We research multiple angles. We don't only have our own angle. We try to do blind testing, studying things that are, okay, if this is true over here, is it also true here? No, it's not. Those verifications are important. So a lot of you right now are thinking, oh yeah, we could build amazing dashboards with that and just make some great data visualizations. Yeah, no. Data visualizations are amazing for some things, but they really suck for other things. Here's an example. This is William Playfair. Actually the first guy to do this. And his very first graph was about how Denmark started losing a shit ton of money to England. Thank you, William. So what we have here is just a graph telling us that, whereas Denmark has a pretty steady export of stuff to Britain, Britain somehow figured out to sell us, something right here. I don't know, something. Whatever it was, maybe, any suggestions? What would we buy from England? I have not food. Not beer. I don't know, something. Anyway, this is a pretty boring graph. It doesn't tell you anything. Then there is a French guy, about the same time, who drew this data visualization. This tells the story about Napoleon's invasion of Moscow, or Russia, I should say. I think he passed through around here as well. And it pretty much, the width of the line here tells you how many troops he has, and how he works his way towards Moscow, and how he has to go to Moscow, which the Russians has just left empty because that was easier. And then he goes, okay, fuck this shit. And he's going home. And how he's just losing troops. You see that? You can start feeling the story. You see all these little lines? Those are rivers. And every time they cross a river, they lose more people. And up here, there's a long text about, oh, it's so cold. And here you can see the temperatures. And it's really cold. And they're dying like flies. You get that story. You're starting to feel yourself in the shoes. And you're wondering right now, what kind of shoes did they have in Napoleon age? I mean, you're thinking these things. A lot of them didn't have shoes, I can tell you. So this is storytelling in a graph, right? So there's a huge difference. Right here, it's just like, yeah, okay. Here we have a story, right? So when do we use what? So data is really good for, data visuals and dashboards are very good for like ongoing validation. Okay, here's our performance. We're still meeting our KPIs. We're on target. It's good. Everything is up. All systems are running. And we're performing as we expect to. Storytelling is better when you have like one-offs. Okay, we really need to build this new product. Should I get out in the way? Or should I? You done? Good. So storytelling is really good for one-off pitches. It's really good for when you want to convince management about doing that one thing that you know is right. It's good for driving something that is new to the company. It's good for driving something that might be risky for the company. You have to get passion in here. Can't all be data, and you know that won't work. So it's about persuasion. I'm not going to go through the whole thing because Momo spent all my time. You knew that was coming. No, but it's pretty obvious here. I tried to make this list as exhaustive as I can. The difference is really data visuals, dashboards, good for ongoing information. Storytelling, good for when you want to make that push, when you want to make that change in your company, right? So there's 3 aspects of storytelling. I'm looking at the time here. We might not actually have to rush that much. So there's 3 aspects of storytelling that I want to touch upon. The thing that we have to do here is, you've discovered this insight. It's certainly because you discovered it, so it's amazing, and it will change the world because you're that kind of person. And all the other nerds in your company are amazed. But you still have to get your management on board, and they're just not. It's just not really as bright as you are, because management is generally not. So it's time to tell a story. So this dude here is, this is, by the way, the Royal Palace in Copenhagen. So pretty. It's kind of small. And it's the only palace in the world where all the buildings are sort of in the city. It's not like a separate building anywhere. It's just in with the rest of the buildings in the city. This is Christian V, Frederick V. Sorry, Mom. And he was a king who was basically known for being quite peaceful and quite chill. The king before him was a very religious, pious dude, and he enforced all kinds of things on the Danes. And this guy was like, fuck that shit. Anyway, the only reason I'm telling you that story is because right now you're already thinking, I have a story going. I could keep telling you about this guy because we have a story going. But we won't. Freytag, a German guy, back in the late 18th century, I think, who wrote some really boring shit, like literature, novels and shit. He came up with this model. He didn't do this design, obviously, where he said that every story has these points that we have to remember, and that goes for your story as well. So the first thing we start with is like an introduction, like what we in the biz call the exposition. Right? Here's the issue. Okay. So we're starting by, let's take a case. We want to build a new analytics product. Here's the case. All of our customers are asking for an analytics product. Oh, cool. That's interesting. Yeah, cool. We start by, saying, what's the problem here? We don't have an analytics product. Oh, that's the problem is the customers want to, you see that? Okay, so we get them excited here, right? And then we start building up rising action to climax and so forth. This will go for anything. Think of your latest Marvel movie you saw, right? What was the last one? What was that? Come on, Alice, I'm looking at you. You're a nerd. What was the last Marvel movie? The big one that I can't remember. Yes, the Avengers. Infinity War. You people suck at being nerds. That's horrible. Yeah. Anyway, Infinity Wars. So that sort of starts with Doctor Strange mulling about doing his thing. And then all of a sudden there's, Loki dies. whoa, what the hell is going on? People are starting dying like characters. That's bad. And then rising action. Things start getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. Then climax, like Thanos gets all the jewels he needs and he kills off everybody. And it sort of just ends there. I've just spoiled the movie for you guys who haven't seen it. Yeah. Hey, fuck it, you had a whole month. And so it just ends right there. And then at the very end, there's like a little teaser saying, did they really die? Did they? Did they really? So this is basically the story of everything. You can think about it. It goes for romantic comedies. It goes for action movies. It goes for like Lego Batman. Amazing movie. It just works. And it will work for you guys too when you're working with data, right? Point out the issue. Set up like the explosion that's going to get them interested. I know that 50% of our customers will pay $20,000 a month for an analytics tool. Ooh, okay, I'm hooked. All right, so this is your point to get it hooked. Then you start arguing for it. Okay, customer A said this. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, okay. Customer B said this. Oh, wow, that's really, really cool. Yeah, okay. We've looked at data that confirms that our major markets would be the UK, the US, and Estonia. Oh, that's amazing. We could make $1 billion, which is, by the way, what I'm getting paid to be here. Pep doesn't know, but now he does. And then we're sort of like, okay, well, I'm sold. We're going to do this. We're going to build an analytics tool. It's going to be amazing. And then our falling action is sort of like, here's our plan of attack. Here's what we could do. We start out by doing, user research, and then we can do some we'll start doing the UI interface. We'll do iterative testing and blah, blah, blah. And then come to a resolution. The board is like, yeah, dude, you're right. We're doing that. And then we sort of round it off with a little teaser going, you think analytics is cool? Just wait till next year when we'll show you the GDPR, DPD, forget it. So does that make sense to you? Okay. This is not my invention, by the way. It's very commonly known. But you can use it for storytelling. This is a random picture of a log. I just needed a filler, but it's pretty. Yeah. Some people think Denmark doesn't have mountains. You're learning a lot about Denmark. It's going to get crazy. Anyway, so I would postulate, and there's probably different approaches to this, that there are three different important parts of storytelling with data. The first thing is the ability to explain what the hell you're talking about. That's combining the narrative with the data, right? Saying, okay, here's the story combined with the data. Okay, so that's actually 42% of our users are feeling this way. Okay, so and that's $62,000. Okay, but combining these things together will be able to explain to your audience what it is you're trying to say and why that particular idea of yours is great. Some things that I like to do is to say that your commentary and context is important. You can't just put numbers out there because people don't get numbers. You have that insight, and you have that knowledge. You have to share it with them, right? Make it clear to them, and bring real people into it. Most people who work in management are used to having reports and people they work with. They're generally pretty good people persons, most of them. Bring real people into it. This picture of customer said blah, 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 this, right? So get people in there. Break it down from being just a spreadsheet into real people. The next thing we have to do is take our data and combine it with visuals. And that's simple data visualization. Whereas we can see a growth in a spreadsheet, because we're nerds, we can see how the numbers are rising and there's a little dip and there's a rise. We can very quickly see there's a tendency that they're growing. Most people can't do that. We have to show them a graph. Some sort of data visualization really works. It'll help you show outliers. Say, okay, this shows this, but I know that you said we had a client that bought for $82,000, but most of our clients pay $8. He's just an outlier. Oh, yeah, okay, fine. We start getting, I put in gravitas. I think that's a good word. I think we start getting gravitas to our data when we can actually visualize it with data. And what chart do we never use? Say it again. What chart do we never use? We'll do it one more time. What chart do we never use? There you go. You can do Venn diagrams, though. That's fine. That's a whole different talk, and I can't do that in an hour. The last thing we want to do is combine these visuals with our narrative, because then it starts getting really powerful. Then we can engage our audience. We can say, okay, you can see the graph. You can see what this means. Here's the hook. See what we could do with this. You see this outline out here? If we could pull that up to the rest. Oh, okay, that's cool. That's awesome. It doesn't really, visuals doesn't really just have to be graphs or tables. It could also be like people using the tool. People like, you're used to, like we talked about the point of sale thing just before. Maybe if you have people using a tool and you get a little video clip of somebody frustrated using a point of sale tool, and then your new prototype, and they're like, this is amazing. Just that thing, storytelling right there, hook. So, keeping tense eye on the time. Some take-homes could be, for this, is like, on top of all of this, try to think about the setting where you'll be delivering your story. That's important for when you start writing your story. Are you going to be there in person, standing in front of 100 people, so you can answer questions? Or is it going to be a PowerPoint presentation that you ship off to some ivory tower somewhere and pray to all the dark gods that things will work? Or is it going to be a Skype thing? It really, really affects how you're going to present your story and how you're going to, how much data you want to put in there and so forth. If you're sending it off to the ivory tower, you want to have an appendix the size of a small library. If you're doing it like I am, you can have the appendix in here and you can answer questions. Look at who you're talking to. So if you know you're dealing with the CEO, and you know the CEO is not for theoretical science, right? Then start working that. Work that thing. Know his hooks. Know what's teasing him. Know what's good in there. Also understand, for lack of a better word, understand the iconography of your company, right? Iconography could be something like, what's your vision? What's your mission as a company, right? All of our companies have fairly similar missions, to be honest. It's all like, yes, we want to make the world a better place by selling car mufflers. Really? Yeah, because they're going to reduce the noise in the neighborhoods. Oh, okay. Get into those iconographies. Hook into it. Like at Lego, it's like we want to make all kids available to, play with toys and make kids happy and creative and stuff like that. Start working those words. Use those hooks that you have in your company. Figure out what the iconography is. I'm just going to skip ahead because the Swede is keeping an eye on me. Swedes. Yeah, empathy with customers, blah, blah, blah. We've been talking about that all week. Of course, you got to have empathy with your customers. You got to have your customer present in your story. That's the whole point. You got to have your customers basically as the actor in your story. The customer is your actor in your story. So empathy, sure, yes. But it's more using them as a tool, right, to show this is what our customers want. Don't forget them. And then my best tip probably, on this slide at least, is to have very short, brief versions ready for when you run into the CEO in the bathroom or wherever you run into. In my case, her. That would be awkward. What are you doing in here, Ivan? I want to hear this story I have to tell. No, anyway. But have a very short version so you can hook them, right? And so, I met Ivan in the hallway. He said this thing about an analytics tool and these customers, and like, oh yeah, we should talk to him. Yeah, he's brilliant. Have you seen that beard? Yeah, he's amazing. So I swear to God, that's how it goes. So I promise to give you some take-homes. And by the way, are you amazed at Copenhagen by now? How pretty it is? Yeah, I know. Yeah. Thank you, Sweden. That's unexpected. Well, that explains a lot. Estonians are kind of nice because the Danes were here teaching them. Anyway, things to do when you get home. When you start collecting these little story artifacts, right? What's a story artifact? A story artifact is a quote from a customer. A story artifact is a success story. Okay, we did this thing and it was great, and we can use that. Okay, we'll save that for next time. Have your salespeople. What I used to do is give my salespeople like an online Excel sheet thing, and they could just put in quotes from customers. Oh, this is a good quote. I'll put that in. Negative and good. Like, oh, it's so frustrating. I used to work for a company called Site Improve. Good product. It's so frustrating that I can't share my dashboards with colleagues. They get that a lot. Okay, I'll put it in there when we have to get funding for that feature, the dashboard feature. I could put in and say, well, we have 7 customers. Sure, okay, you have 7 customers that said that, so what? But what I can put in customers, exact quotes and a picture of them with the revenue that that customer provides, that's a much better story. Icons of the legend being the company. What is the legend of Site Improve? What is the legend of IBM? What is the legend of CXL? Right? Get these icons, understand them, maybe even get actual physical icons for the mental icons. Engage with other departments. Sales, I just mentioned sales, they have stuff to tell you. Engage with customer support. Just go around the company, collect all these little tidbits, and then always be mindful of the story so far, because what you're basically doing here when you're talking to upper management is you're directing one episode in a long story that they're listening to. Okay, so maybe when you're pitching your idea for the analytics product, they've just heard a pitch from the accounting department that they really need a new ERP system, and it's completely different for yours. But you have to remember you're still in that storyline. For management, you're just a new episode in a long running horrible Netflix series that they can't quit. So be mindful of the story so far. I think we have 40, 39, 38 seconds left. I'm just saying timing. Right, Momo? That's it.